In the Beatitudes, we hear the preaching of Yeshua himself, and in them he reveals himself as the ascended Master, who has been accepted as such by every spiritual discipline in history. The Beatitudes are the 8 declarations of blessedness spoken by Yeshua at the beginning of his Sermon on the Mount, recounted in the book of Matthew. It is debated as to exactly how many Beatitudes there are. Some speak of 7, 9, or 10 Beatitudes, but the number is generally agreed to be 8. The Greek word translated blessed means spiritual well-being and prosperity. Those who experience the first aspect of a beatitude will also experience the second aspect of the beatitude once they have adopted a quality of character that has placed them in touch with the spiritual realm Yeshua calls the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Form is nothingness. Gautama Buddha. To be in want is to possess. To have plenty is to be confused. Lao Tzu. Each of the Beatitudes include pairings that seem puzzling to show that the workings of the spiritual realm and of the material world are contrary. This explains the seeming contradiction of a blessing resulting from a poverty of spirit. Blessed is rendered from the Greek word for perpetual happiness, implying that being poor in spirit enables a person to accept all occurrences, good and bad, while maintaining a humble gratitude. Poor is translated from the Greek tokos, meaning destitute and totally dependent on others. In the language of Yeshua, the word was miskana, an Aramaic idiom for one who voluntarily surrenders all attachment to material possessions for a spiritual benefit. In other words, becoming materially poor to become spiritually rich. Lao Tzu is telling us that achieving plenty confuses us about what our real needs are. It is important to note that Yeshua speaks of the kingdom in the present tense. For those who can recognize, without pride or ego, that they are dependent on a spirit greater than their own, theirs is the kingdom, not theirs will be. This first beatitude is often misquoted as blessed are the poor, and this leads to a false conclusion. There is nothing inherently wrong about worldly goods and material security, and we are clearly advised to exercise good stewardship over whatever wealth we possess. It is the unbalanced attachment to worldly goods that leads to compromising our beliefs in efforts at attainment. Enriching the ego is to become impoverished spiritually. Yeshua warns us not to store treasures on earth, but in the spiritual realm he called the kingdom of God, because, he said, where your treasure lies, there your heart will be also. Equally important is to never conform to the expectations of other people at the expense of that true self we were created to be. As humans, we must realize and accept that we do not exist of ourselves. Having that spiritual poverty of spirit is to voluntarily surrender our ego, which as humans leaves us with a fearful feeling as if we are nothing. Gautama points out that it is the false form of the ego that is really nothing. Yeshua reveals to us that the dissolution of our false ego self results in the preservation of our true self in the presence of God.